Hi guys, my name's Bruce Stewart. I'm the Commercial Director for Walkinshaw Racing and the Holden Racing team. Appreciate you sending in some questions. First, we're going to start off with some of the sponsorship questions. Here we go. First question from Philip Grassi is, what is the process that sponsors must undergo to ensure signage on the cars? Well, firstly, you need, I guess, a reasonable budget and an understanding of what you want to achieve from sponsoring the Holden Racing team or Walkinshaw Racing. In that respect, you come and speak to someone like myself and we negotiate and talk about a package that's going to deliver on your objectives, and then hopefully the next year we roll out the car and your brand is on the side of the Holden Racing team. Secondly, question from Saint4141. What sort of budget does the team need to secure from sponsors for a complete season? Well, there's a little bit of secret squirrel about that. Different teams have different budgets and obviously work within different realms and expenditures. Obviously, the Holden Racing team likes to have the best drivers, and in that respect, we probably spend a lot on our cars as well, considering to what other teams may spend. You could safely equate that it takes at least $3.5 million per car to run a car that's reasonably competitive. We're not here to be just reasonably competitive though. The Holden Racing team's here to try and win and play at the front. So our budget's a little bit more and we get a little bit more pressure from the boss to deliver on those numbers. Craig at InPix has asked me, can you briefly describe what type of media do you utilise to get a deal done? And do the drivers get drafted in personally to help negotiations with prospective partners? Well, again, that's a little bit of the magic of what you do to try and differentiate yourself from each other racing team or even sporting team. Often we find ourselves in pitches against AFL teams and NRL teams, and sport's an interesting place to play, and people are trying to tap into different aspects of each sport to deliver on their message. Yes, making a professional pitch, an impressive pitch is hopefully what we do and how we differentiate ourselves. I think it's a real indication of how professional your team is as to how professional your pitch is. Obviously we look at each kind of media to try and deliver. We use a lot of video and we use a lot of measurement and research insights in regard to what our team means for other potential parties who buy into sponsoring the Holden Racing team. Scott Burnto Burnt says, how does the team get sponsors? Do they come to you or do you go to them? Really good question, Scott. When you're more successful and when you win big events, you do find that you get an influx of potential investors coming into the team. But most of the time, I think all of the V8 supercar teams go and try and prospect for themselves and work on other sports and other companies that are making moves and would look to invest in the passion of sport. Jeremy Duffy has put in a question. He said, g'day, what do you guys look for in a sponsor? How do you narrow down your target sponsors? That's a really, really good question. We look for premium brands to associate and partner themselves with the Holden Racing team. In that respect, we've got premium brands already on board with us. So obviously being the factory team of Holden and having major sponsors like SP Tools, Mobil One, HSV, and also newly to the team this year, Monster Energy, ensures that we try and bring on brands that are in synergy with what our brand represents. So really good question, appreciate that, Jeremy. Angie Ford, someone I know out there in the paddock, hi Angie, has asked, who is the hardest sponsor to land and what is the most unusual or interesting thing you've done to secure a contract? Well, to be quite frank, all sponsors have, I guess, differing challenges that you try and overcome to bring them into a team. I couldn't really pinpoint any one that was the hardest to land. The most interesting or unusual thing you've done to secure a contract? Well, again, it's, I guess, in the way you put out the pitch and how you try and find your ways into prospective sponsors. Usually you use contacts and friends of contacts and try and find someone senior within that business. So there's a little bit of the secret squirrel about that, and that's a little bit of the dark art of finding commercial partners for racing teams. But in that respect, it's probably something I couldn't go any further into. Kevin Davis, great man, has asked, who is your favourite sponsor? Well, definitely Kev, you are definitely one of them. So mate, appreciate your support. And all those people out there watching us, make sure that you go in and find SP Tools and put them in your garage, workshop or mechanical area because they're a great partner of the Holden Racing team. Really appreciate your support. Good on you, Kev, thank you. Jason Burns has asked, how early in a season do you need to finalise sponsors for the next year? Really, really good question. It is the toughest part of what we do insofar as trying to bring that decision-making process towards early in the year and towards the middle of the year, because we get so many aspects that we need to consider, such as merchandise and putting brands on, all of our merch so that it can be on sale potentially, hopefully before Christmas. Unfortunately, the way the environment is in Australia and the world at the moment means that, a lot of investors in the sport and any kind of sport are holding on to their pennies a little bit and making their decision late in the process. So it's always an area of tension where we try and bring that decision making forwards. But thanks for your question, Jason, really good one. Dan Lee has said, roughly how much would a primary sponsor contribute to a race team each year? Again, that's a sensitive one, and depending on the team, some teams might take a lesser number for their major sponsor. Certainly when you've got a larger team like ourselves, or even Triple Eight, you'd probably have a larger number in respect to that, but there's also an expectation on results. So Dan, as much as I'd like to answer your question, probably a little bit hard for me at this one, so appreciate it though. Thanks for writing in.